everybody. Welcome to the Hidden Gems podcast on Rachel's Reviews. So excited to be here this week. I can't believe that it's practically October, and I thought this was just going to be something we do a couple of weeks to get us through quarantine, but here we are. This is so exciting. I love doing this, and it's really fun to dive in deeper to the hidden gems that are available on the streaming services. They beyond just the basic big new releases. And so today we were talking about Amazon Prime, and this is our third episode on Amazon Prime. And I am film critic Rachel Wagner, and Ryan is here.
Hey Rachel, so great to be with you once again, and so great to be with all of you watching. The pumpkin spice latte herds are starting to come back from hibernation.
Yeah.
It is. I love this time of year. It's so beautiful. We are so close to Halloween. I've been incredibly busy working on my channel with my biggest series that I'm ever going to be doing, taking place all throughout the month of October, and I'll talk about that once we get to the end. But man, this is it's going to be just a rocket of a last couple of months. Like we joke about how fast 2020 is going and how slow it's going all at the same time. It's slow fast or fast slow. But it's like with October, November, and December, like no matter what happens, I'm still gonna have fun.
Yeah, I'm really excited too about October because we're going to have my next edition of Disney Scares Month, which I think this is my 5th year doing it, so 4th or 5th. And so yeah, I've got some fun stuff planned, and I'm doing a collab over with Lee from Drum Dumbs podcast YouTube channel. Anyway, we're going to be talking about Watcher in the Woods, so that's going to be really fun, and it's a nice chance to get to talk about some like more family friendly but slightly scary films, and I'm really excited about that again to dive in. And so we've got fun stuff planned in October.
Yeah, you got to savor these next couple of months, because after that you got 3.25 million Christmas movies to review, like across Hallmark and Lifetime. In the words of one of our greatest living philosophers, Mike Rowe, it's a dirty job, but somebody's got to do it.
Yes, I know. One of our co-hosts, she has a countdown on her phone, a countdown to the beginning of Countdown to Christmas. And I was just like, that's just like it's like a death toll. Like, it's like, oh, it's coming, it's coming, it's coming. No, I'm really, really, really excited about it, but it is going to be a lot of work. So, yeah. But this is in this show, we each give 5 recommendations that we consider kind of deeper cuts, or something that might not be the most obvious pick on these streaming services, and it's a lot of fun. And so let us know what you've been watching on Amazon Prime, what you recommend, and we will have links to all of the other episodes that we've done in the description. So Ryan, why don't you start us off? What is your first pick?
So my first pick is from 2010, and it is called Red, which is short for Retired Extremely Dangerous. This is based on, I can't remember if this is a Vertigo comic or an Image comic, but it's under the DC Comics umbrella now, so it's based on the DC comic essentially. And it tells the story of a man named Frank Moses, played by Bruce Willis, who, after spending like 30 plus years in the CIA, is now retired and hating every second of it. But when somebody tries to kill him, he springs back into action and gets his old cohorts to join in with him, and those include Morgan Freeman, Helen Mirren, and John Malkovich. Oh, and all throughout that, he's being hunted by a very hungry CIA agent played by Carl Urban, and is in the middle of a romantic relationship with Sarah, played by Mary Louise Parker. When this movie came out, I wasn't too familiar with anything outside of like Batman and Spider-Man in terms of the comics world, so when I heard that this was based on a comic, I was like, this can't be. Like, nobody has like superpowers or is climbing up walls or hunting down criminals that look like clowns. You know, this is sort of similar to our real life, but like a souped up version. And I walked out of this movie extremely happy because I think this isn't going to like change the game in terms of comic book storytelling, but on the basic premise of these older people who were spies are now doing one last ride has been done a lot worse before, so it was largely very good. Bruce Willis has effectively stopped caring at this point, but there was a time when he actually did, and this is one of those times, thank God. Morgan Freeman is always excellent in anything he's in. And John Malkovich is a lot of fun. He's essentially a conspiracy theorist who believes that the government is spying on us. I mean, are we sure about that conspiracy theory? I'm asking this honestly here. And Mary Louise Parker is a lot of fun too. The chemistry between her and Willis is really a lot of fun. The highlight of the movie, though, this is worth the price of admission, is when Bruce Willis and Carl Urban have this big old fight. It's in this office, Back in the Saddle by Aerosmith is played overhead, and it's just a great fight. Willis body slams Urban through a table, gets him in an arm hold, and says, "Hey, did Klosky train you?" And Urban's like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Well, I trained Klosky," and then breaks his arm. It's not a, it's so funny and so dark all at the same time, and I love it. So
Yeah.
it's a bit of a harder edge. It's not rated R, but it's definitely got its moments. But Red is definitely a very underrated comic book movie, I would say.
I've never seen it. I've heard of it, but I've never seen it. So that sounds interesting. Maybe I'll
Yeah,
have to.
I even like the sequel too. It's a bit of a step down, but I still like it.
Mhm. Yeah, very cool. Yeah, it's interesting. For a while there, they they were making a lot of movies, whether it was action movies, whether it was comedies, whether it's dramas, for senior citizens, because I think they actually go to the movies quite a bit before COVID, because it's someplace they usually get senior citizen discounts, and there's something like Second Exotic Marigold Hotel, or something like that, or that book club movie, things like that are sort of designed for an older audience, that you get. And I think that's like maybe the action version of that kind of demographic.
Yeah.
So interesting.
Funny side story before we move on. I was working at my local movie theater when Book Club initially came out. And on Saturdays and Sundays for like the noon and 2 o'clock show times, they'd be sold out. Like you couldn't fit another person in there with Vaseline. Like it was just packed. It was packed to the gills.
Those are the
And
days.
and I was yes, indeed. And I was working in concessions, and my buddy who was also working there, he walked out of there and says, "Hey Jake, have you been in the book club theater?" And I'm like, "No, is it full?" And he's like, "It looks like a cotton field in there," because everybody in there
Oh
had
yeah.
big hair or gray hair.
Big
And
puppy hair.
I just laughed a little too hard at that.
That's funny. Very good. All right. So my first pick is has some fighting in it, I guess, action at least. And it is the movie Warrior, which I think is very underrated. And you don't have to be into mixed martial arts to enjoy this film. This is Gavin O'Connor. He's a really, I think, a good director. And it tells a true story of these two brothers, Tom Hardy, Joel Edgerton. One is coming back from war. He's kind of the rebel. The other is more of like the home body type. He's a teacher, and he's married, family. They both are very resentful of their father, who's played by Nick Nolte. He was nominated for an Oscar for this. And they end up entering this contest for UFC. And they, of course, it's kind of obvious, the big reveal at the end is they end up having to fight themselves, each other. And it's all about these men, and particularly their relationship with their father, and can they forgive him for what he did, and the fact he was an alcoholic. And I think it's very well done. It's so satisfying. and you feel so invested in all of the characters. And so if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. And like I said, you do not have to be into UFC or into fighting or anything like that. It's about the people involved in this case. So I just highly recommend it.
Yeah, Warrior was my favorite movie of 2011. When I was making my best of the decade video, it was a tie between Warrior and Drive, and there was like Drive Warrior, Drive Warrior, Drive Warrior, and I finally settled on Warrior because I can't remember this exact quote, but some author once said, oh, it was Mark Twain. He said that most books are like wine. My books are like water. And I'm butchering that, but I'm sure you all got the point. Essentially, what I attribute to Drive and Warrior is this. Drive is like wine. Like, it's got a lot of fermented notes. It tingles on the tongue and tantalizes the senses, but it's alcohol, and it's not for everybody. But Warrior is like water. It doesn't hold anything back. It is exactly what it is, but it's for everybody, and it's honestly more healthy than the wine.
Yeah. Well, I
But
mean, and yeah, and with Warrior, the it's like a ticking clock. You know, because you have Nick Nolte's character that's in recovery, and obviously it's very difficult for him to stay in recovery with his sons being so upset with him and his life kind of in shambles. And you know that he is going to fall. He's going to have a fall, and it's just like waiting, and then it's still just so devastating when it does happen and how it happens. And some people might call this movie predictable, but I think it takes a formula, see, then and executes it really well. And I think that that formula films are only bad if the characters are not well done and the performances are not well done. Formula films are fine, are sometimes quite excellent, sometimes better than original films, if they can take something that we know and 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 execute it well, with really interesting characters and with really uh, interesting settings, or depending on the movie. But this, it's about these characters and these men, so there's no need to reinvent the wheel as far as the story beats go.
exactly. And three of my favorite scenes from 2011 happen in Warrior, and they're relatively close to each other. The first is the casino scene when Tom Hardy's just sitting there putting coins into a slot machine, and Nick Nolte's trying to talk to him, and he's just not having it. But then Tom Hardy just explodes on him, and it's one of those. It's just like you have to watch it through your hands. It's so disturbing because despite the fact that Nick Nolte's character did do very bad things, he's at least trying to make an attempt to make things right. And Tom Hardy's character is not exactly helping. So it's just a matter of, yeah, he's done bad things, but he's at least trying,
Mm-hmm.
like to make things right. And Tom Hardy's like no, past is the past. No, past is the past
Yeah.
stuff. Get out of here. And then
Well,
the
and it's
very
hard because, sorry, it's hard because people that are in recovery have burned a lot of bridges a lot of times, and have been manipulative, and so you don't want to enable them, and you want to be hesitant, but then also you want to help them in their recovery. It's really tough.
Yeah, and the scene after that is when Nick Nolte finally falls off the wagon. He's drunk in like 15 or 16 of those mini liquors from the mini fridge. And he's listening to his Moby Dick audiobook, and he's like, "Get off the ship! Get off the ship! Get off the ship!" And Tom Hardy's character comes in and he's just like, "Uh-oh." And he just like they just have a moment, and you're just like,
It's
okay.
devastating.
And then I think the one after that or before that, before the casino scene, is when Joel Edgerton and Tom Hardy finally meet for like the first time all movie. You've seen them separately, but never together, and they just air out like 20 years of dirty laundry. And it's brutal, but it's so well acted and so well directed. That's why The Way Back is currently still my favorite movie of 2020 so far.
Yeah.
Like you said, Rachel, Gavin O'Connor's movies follow a formula, but the writing is so good, the characters are done so well, and the acting is on point that you just kind of forget about it after a while and you get sucked in. At least I do.
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed. All right. What's your next pick?
Wow, we went off on a bit of a
I know
tangent.
I could talk about Warrior all day. We probably should do a whole extra
I
podcast
would
someday about it.
I would love to do that, but
Yeah.
anyway. So my next choice is from 2018. It was directed by Jonah Hill, and it is called Mid 90s. This is from A24, so you know it's going to be slightly artsy, and it is. It's done in the style of 90s cameras at the time. It tells the story of a little boy who I don't want to say he comes from a broken home, but his father's no longer in the picture. His mother is trying to make ends meet while still keeping up appearances, and his brother wants absolutely nothing to do with him. So he starts gravitating towards a love of skateboarding and finds kinship in these fellow skateboarders who are trying to capture their tricks on video. I wonder if there's a website in the future that they could post those clips to. YouTube. But anyway, uh, like I said, this was written and directed by Jonah Hill, and to me, Jonah Hill is either hit or miss, as an actor. Sometimes he can be the funniest part of a movie, and sometimes he can just have go away heat. I just want him off of my screen forever. But with this one, I was pleasantly surprised at how much I enjoyed mid '90s. It reminded me a lot of Spike Jonze's adaptation of Where the Wild Things Are. It's about this little boy who's trying to find himself and trying to navigate these complex emotions that he is trying to go through with a mom who clearly loves him and played brilliantly by Catherine Watterson, by the way, but is trying to keep her own ducks in a row, and an older brother who kind of is ambivalent towards him, played brilliantly by Lucas Hedges. Uh, and so he finds friends in these skaters, and he starts doing things that you probably shouldn't be doing, whether it's legal or illegal. That's all the way up to you. But it's a coming of age story that I don't think we really see anymore. It's like a warts and all coming of age story. And for someone like Jonah Hill, who I'm like, on a good day, I was very surprised that he was able to craft something like this. And I hope that he keeps writing and directing down the line.
Hmm. And so is Jonah Hill actually in the movie, or is he just directing?
He is just a director.
Okay.
I can't remember if he makes a cameo or not, but
Hmm.
I don't think he does.
Yeah, I want to see this, especially if you say the comparison to Where the Wild Things Are, which is a movie I absolutely love. So that's interesting.
Keep in
And
mind, there are no fluffy monsters voiced by James Gandolfini in Midnight.
right, but I love that movie, so that's intriguing. And so yeah, I think maybe I maybe just missed it too quickly. I should give it a shot. It sounds really interesting. All right, my next pick, and this is arguably not a hidden gem as far as if you're into classic films. This is very well regarded. But if you're not into classic films, you might not have heard of it, and you might need to check it out. So that was kind of my argument for it. And it's called His Girl Friday, and this is one of the classic films that we've ever gotten out of Hollywood. Particularly, the dialogue is so fast, it's so quick, and it's about these two reporters that have been married, now are divorced. It's Rosalind Russell and Cary Grant, and she is now going to get married, and so he finds out about it, and there's this whole case that they end up getting involved in, and she can't resist the big case, the big story, and it's got some of the best dialogue that you've ever seen. It's really good, and directed by Howard Hawks. And so yeah, highly recommend if you want to see a really great romantic comedy, then you should check it out.
Yeah, I'm honestly a little surprised that I have never seen this movie, and I'm a big Howard Hawks fan. He directed one of my favorite westerns, Rio Bravo.
He did Bringing Up Baby, which is also one of my favorites of that era. So, yeah, he is definitely a very uh, versatile director and producer. If you like rom coms, you've got to see His Girl Friday. It's one of the foundation rom coms that has been copied and looked at and emulated so many times. So you got to check it out.
Yeah, and yeah, it's Howard Hawks is one of the, in the words of Leonard Maltin, he is one of the greatest directors that doesn't have a household name.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's fair. I think for some reason I feel like outside of film Twitter and people who know movies, I feel like David Lean isn't as well known as he deserves to be with his amazing filmography. But yeah, the Howard Hawks would also be another one. Well, what's your next pick?
So my next pick is stars a man who is frequently compared to Cary Grant, George Clooney. This is called Up in the Air. This was directed by Jason Reitman, the son of Ivan Reitman, and Jason Reitman is going to be directing the new Ghostbusters movie, or would have if the pandemic hadn't happened. But that is coming down the pike. Up in the Air is about a man played by George Clooney who basically is flown around to fire people. It's like the definition of what is called a BS job, a job that could be done by anybody and could easily be phased out, but is done mostly just to make the company look good. And he learns that he's essentially going to be phased out eventually because a new executive played by Anna Kendrick is introducing the world to Skype, and so to hire someone to travel around to say you're fired is going to be very expensive. So he has to grapple with that, while at the same time he ends up having a very good romantic relationship. And Up in the Air was a movie that I didn't see in theaters. It was a little before I became a serious moviegoer, and I ended up watching it at home just on a lark, and I absolutely loved it. George Clooney is just one of the most charismatic actors that is still going today. Like, he's now pretty much a tequila salesman at this point. He's running his tequila company, but for a while he was like Mr. Charisma. Like, if he was on the poster, you knew that he was just going to give a full 200%. And he's actually surprisingly wholesome in this movie. He comes off as this hard guy. Like, there's this one line where he talks about how he once had 3 miserable days off because he's basically married to his job. But deep down inside, he has the same wants and desires as any other man. And when he gets into that romantic relationship, you really do root for him and you want him to succeed in that. So Up in the Air is one of those movies that it's kind of romantic, but it's kind of a comedy and with a little bit of drama in there at the same time. It's like a rom-com drama. That's a thing, right?
A dramedy, I guess.
Oh, very.
Yeah, I love this movie. I think it is so well written. I really like Jason Reitman. I am a huge fan of Juno. It's one of my top 20 favorite movies. And so I'm a huge fan of him. And I really enjoy this film as well. And I think what it does so well is you have a character who thinks they have everything figured out, thinks they have everything under control, they have everything that they want in life, and then things just start unraveling through the course of the movie. And I think the romantic relationship is actually quite devastating when there's a certain point where he finally allows himself to be vulnerable, and then what happens is, I think, quite devastating. And I think that it would be easy to make that character really unlikable, but because he is so charismatic and because I think the contrast with the Anna Kendrick character and her and kind of her arc, which she was nominated for an Oscar for this, is really good. And I thought it was a great movie. I love it. So I'm with you there. And we're going to be doing our best and worst of George Clooney as a little. We're going to start to do a little bonus to try to tease people to listen to the podcast. So make sure you check that out. That'll be really fun. And so it's a very good pick up in there. It's a movie I really love. Okay, so then we have an animated film for my list. We have Charlotte's Web. This is one of the few non-Disney films to make its stamp on animation in the 70s. This is 1973, but it's really good. Of course, based on the E.B. White classic children's novel. And you have some really lovely performances. Debbie Reynolds as Charlotte, and you have Paul Lynde playing Templeton the Rat. And the songs are from the Sherman Brothers, so you can't go wrong with that. One of the few non-Disney films that they did, and it's a really great story of them trying to save Wilbur and everything. So yeah, I think it holds up. I believe it was made by the Hanna-Barbera people, and I think it's really good.
Yeah, this is one of those books that I've read but have never seen any of the movies. I read Charlotte's Web when I was in fourth or fifth grade, and I remember loving it. And I had always heard about this movie. I was more aware of the 2006 live action version with Dakota Fanning, and I never saw that. I don't know if you saw that, if it was any good.
It's okay, like it's fine, but I prefer this animated version, especially because of the songs.
Yeah, the Sherman Brothers, they're pretty good at writing songs, I'd say.
Mm. But and I almost always prefer animation over live action. But it's perfectly serviceable.
Put aside your confirmation bias for once, Rachel. For shame.
But it's just a sweet story, and like I said, you can't beat those songs. So what do you have next?
Next pick is a documentary, and it is called Every Little Step. This was a movie that I saw in middle school, as I was a big musical theater kid growing up, and so there were a certain amount of movies you had to watch in order to like get the full experience, and Every Little Step is one of them. It's a documentary about the revival of A Chorus Line on Broadway with members of the original cast, including Bjork Lee, and it chronicles about 3,000 or so dancers trying to get into this musical. It's incredibly competitive. And the documentary does a great job of highlighting their stories, their trials, their tribulations, struggles and failures. And it can be very uplifting and can be downright heartbreaking all at the same time. I've never seen A Chorus Line. I've heard nothing but good things, but I know the songs, and I know every little step about the making of the revival. And one of my favorite parts of the movie is when the initial auditions happen, and the first song from A Chorus Line is "God, I hope I get it. I hope I get it. God, I hope I get it, because I really want." And that is intertwined with all of the potential dancers preparing, going over their lines, practicing their dance steps they need for the choreography, and etc. And the mood of the song fits in brilliantly with the footage of the people practicing, because the song is about auditioning, and now that audition song is being placed over auditions. So in a weird way, it all comes full circle. So Rachel, have you ever heard of this one?
Yes, I've seen it. I really enjoyed it. I actually considered picking it when I was going through. It was on my kind of short list. And I think that it is really well done documentary. And I think it'd be a good choice if you're having that Broadway, cravings. It'd be a good way to kind of get your fix while Broadway is closed. And although it might be kind of depressing too, to be like, oh, it's gone, but it'll come back. I promise, it'll come back. So yeah, it's a well done documentary. If you like those kind of behind the scenes, look at at how things are kind of made and the different personalities that try out and everything, and the devastation, disappointment, but then also the excitement when some of them do get picked.
Yeah, and another thing about the documentary that I just popped into my head is we get to learn more about the creator of the musical, Michael Bennett, and how he was an openly gay man, and
Mm-hmm.
how he struggled with all of that, like having the number one musical on the planet and also being on the LGBT spectrum. And the documentary, I feel, does a great job of chronicling that and how he struggled with that.
Yeah, yeah, very good pick. Okay, next I on my list I have a romantic comedy called, I know, shocker, called What If, and this movie is basically about these two friends from college that are kind of friend zoned each other, especially her with him. He's more interested in her than she is with him, but she's kind of, they're always sort of in relationships when the other's out of a relationship. Like it never kind of works out, even though they're close. It's kind of When Harry Met Sally a little bit, but in that way. But I think it's actually pretty funny, and I think that Daniel Radcliffe and Zoe Kazan have nice chemistry together, and you really kind of want them to get together. And also Adam Driver is in this, and Mackenzie Davis, and they're like married couple friends, and they are hilarious and really good. And so if you want to see like an early, more small role of Adam Driver, then you should definitely check this one out. I definitely think it's underrated.
Yeah, there's something about Adam Driver in smaller movies that makes me like him even more.
Hmm.
It seems if now that his Star Wars phase is officially out of his system, he'll finally return to movies like Logan Lucky or What If or something like that. And I will be all for that when he does.
Yeah, I mean, he is very funny, and I think people that are only used to him as Kylo might not realize that, but he can be extremely funny, and he is in this. So, if you like romantic comedy, then you should check it out.
Yeah, and it's funny because I was looking this up on IMDb, and on IMDb the movie is credited as called The F Word, and then there's the
Oh
poster
yeah.
that says What If. So is that an international thing? Do you know?
I think it was called the F word in Britain, but like I think the F word is not as big of a deal in Britain as it is here. It's not like as much of a swear word as it is there. It's like more of a joke, and I think that's why they wanted. I mean, this is PG. They want to get that PG-13 for this, and if it was called the F word, that's not happening. So
Yeah,
that's probably why they called it What If.
because I was looking at it, and I picked, there was another movie called What If that starred Kevin Sorbo, and I was like, wait a minute, I think she's talking about the wrong movie. But then
Yeah.
I went back and I was like, wow, international releases are just really weird. Like don't look into the Godzilla titles, because the Godzilla titles in Japan versus over in the States, they'll make your head
Oh
spin.
yeah.
But that's neither here nor
I know that happens sometimes, like with Zootopia. It was what was it called?
there.
Zootropolis, I think, or something like
Zootopolis or Tropolis.
yeah, that in the and it just had to do with, there was some amusement park in Italy that was called Zootopia, and so so there's sometimes really random reasons why they have to change. So yeah, is your next or your final pick?
So my final pick is from 2011, and it is called The Lincoln Lawyer. This starred Matthew McConaughey just as he was about to make his McConaissance, that it has been lovingly dubbed. And it tells the story of a lawyer who rides around in a Lincoln, and he helps, like, he's like Saul Goodman, like he helps like the people who have no chance in hell of getting off, but he somehow finds a way to get them off. But unlike Saul Goodman, who like takes shortcuts, uh, the Matthew McConaughey is actually a very talented lawyer, and he gets on this case where it seems like, oh, he has to defend a rich kid against the rich kid sexually assaulting a woman, but he says that he didn't do it. Seems open and shut. Well, it turns out there are a lot more twists and turns there than previously imagined. And like I said, this was around the time when Matthew McConaughey was really starting to turn on the jets when it came to his acting. There's also Bryan Cranston in there. He was in the middle of his Breaking Bad phase, which meant that was peak Bryan Cranston. And this was directed by a gentleman named Brad Furman, who would also direct Bryan Cranston in a movie called The Infiltrator, which I think is also underrated. And he also directed a Justin Bieber documentary. So the man has quite a range, let's just say that. But in terms of the movie itself, it's not going to rewrite the rules in terms of lawyer movies. It's pretty much going to follow the beats, but it makes up for that in really fascinating characters. Marissa Tomei is in this. William H. Macy is in this. Josh Lucas is in this, who fell off the earth for a while but then came back in Ford v Ferrari, and he's always a lot of fun. Michael Pena's in this. John Leguizamo, he's in this too. They're both great. So yeah, this is a movie that definitely fell under the radar, and I think you all would really like it.
Very cool. I didn't realize that it had all those people in it. I'd heard of this from my Matthew McConaughey, but I didn't realize that it had Cranston and all of that. So that's very intriguing.
Plus, there's a really excellent twist that I will dare not spoil if anyone wants to go check it out. But believe me, it's like it'll knock you off your feet in the best way possible.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, my last pick is a very unusual film that I really enjoyed called Anna and the Apocalypse. And this is a zombie Christmas coming of age musical. And
Wow.
you don't get that every day, right? And it's about the zombie apocalypse that's happening in England, and particularly about these two teenagers, particularly a girl is our lead kind of character, and she's kind of struggling to get along with her parents, and she's got these different kind of relationships, and she's just kind of over it, and then all of a sudden the zombie apocalypse happens, and it's very creative and energetic and fun and funny, and I really like the songs, especially Hollywood Ending. I think is really good, and so yeah, it's if you want something different, especially around the holidays when I see a lot of the same stuff. It's refreshing to watch this.
Yeah, and I was looking at the trailer for this earlier, and one of the pull quotes is Shaun of the Dead meets La La Land.
That's
I
right.
love Shaun of the Dead. It's one of my favorite movies to watch around October, and I'm one of the like five people that still loves La La Land even after it came out. So I definitely have to check this out.
Yeah, it just has a creative energy about it that I really responded to and just thought was very fun. So people should check it out. So there we go. That is our 10 picks. I think those are very strong picks. Amazon Prime coming through again with some really good stuff. So let us know what you are watching. I also have my review of this series Utopia on my channel. So you want to check that out. That's it will just, I think, posted to when this airs. I think will be the first day of that series. But anyway, check that out. That was an interesting thing to watch. And so Ryan, where can people find you?
You all can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd at RyanCam20. Then, of course, there's my channel, Ryan Cam Movie Reviews on YouTube. Today, we're recording this on a Tuesday, which means yesterday, which is a Monday, my episode of the AFI Project on King Kong dropped, and that was a lot of fun to make. And then on Wednesday, I'll be dropping my episode for Memory Help Me, Bonnie and Clyde, starring Warren Beatty and Faye Dunaway. And I've got a lot of quality movies coming up to review on that project. Midnight Cowboy, the first Lord of the Rings. Let's see, Streetcar Named Desire. So it's the AFI project is going to come in with some heavy hitters. And then, of course, starting in October, it's my channel is going to be taken over by Scary Mania, where I'm going to be reviewing 31 horror movies in
What?
31 days. And it is by far and away the biggest series that I have ever done on my channel. I've done a Halloween series every year since 2018. I did an animation month in 2018, and I did the first encounter last year. And so I decided, you know what? I'm just going to pull a James Rolfe from the Angry Video Game Nerd, and I'm going to review 31 horror movies in 31 days. It's going to be a challenge, but you know
Uh,
what? I've got the true grit to do it.
that's awesome. Well, I look forward to that. That's going to be really fun. And make sure you're following Ryan's channel, and make sure you like and like this video, subscribe to Rachel's Reviews. Really appreciate that. If you are listening on iTunes, please leave your ratings and reviews. And if you are watching on YouTube, please give us a thumbs up and comment on the video. Let us know what you think about our picks and what you've been watching on Amazon Prime. We also have our Patreon, which we are going to have our next Patreon watch along tomorrow, on this upcoming Saturday, with Nina Weinman. We are going to be watching Pumpkin Pie Wars, so perfect for the holidays. Make sure you check that out. Going to be really fun, and any level of patron can join us. We also had this week, me and Ryan got to be joined by patron Micah and his mom Stacy to talk about Ratatouille, which is so fun. So if you want to have that similar opportunity, make sure to check out the Patreon. In the all the information is in the description section. And also make sure to check out a merch store, which is really fun. And thanks again, and we'll talk to you all later. Bye, everyone.
Bye.